Hello, this is Dave Sugarbaker, and today is the first Sunday of November. It's the 3rd of November, 2024, and the election is in 2 days. So I have two proverbs here. First, surely there is a future, and your hope will not be cut off. And the second proverb, 2 verses, my child, eat honey, for it is good, and the drippings of the honeycomb are sweet to your taste. Know that wisdom is thus for your soul. If you find it, then there will be a future, and your hope will not be cut off. So, as I said, we're only 2 days from our national election, and polls have been showing that the race is within the statistical margin of error. That means that neither candidate has a definitive lead, and it all depends on who the pollsters listen to and how they massage their numbers. Is it 49% for one candidate and 51% for the other? It really has very little meaning if it's that close. And we're not likely to know who won, no matter how late we stay up on election night. It could take days for the whole thing to sort out, and that's before the lawyers start to chew on it. I read a book recently entitled Hope for Cynics, and in it, the author, who is a behavioral scientist, says that our innate human negative bias plays a role in our political push and pull these days. The author says that we tend to see the glass as half empty, and that may be a holdover from when we lived in the jungle, and there survival depended on being suspicious and expecting the worst. That's how you survived. These days, however, our negative bias causes us to see more threats than there really are there. The author cites a survey of Democrats and Republicans that they did at Stanford. 750 of each political stripe. So there'd be 750 Democrats, 750 Republicans, were asked to fill in information about themselves and about their perception of their political rivals. And everyone was asked whether they personally would consider resorting to violence if the election didn't go their way. And then they were also asked how many of the opposing party were likely, in that respondent's opinion, to react violently if the election didn't go their way. The scientists then added up the numbers, and each political group thought that 30% of the other group was likely to resort to violence. Wow. But the scientists had also asked each individual whether they would themselves resort to violence, and each side, both of them, returned a result of 5 to 7% of them who would personally admit to being ready to resort to violence if the election didn't go their way. But the interesting thing was the difference between perception and reality. Each side overestimated the opposition's propensity for violence by a factor of 5 to 6 times. Now, 5 to 7% of any group who are ready to resort to violence is an extremely unsettling prospect. But our negative bias makes the problem 5 to 600% worse than it really is. The author, a behavioral scientist, goes on to say that we tend to guarantee the reaction that we fear the most from our perceived enemies. If we react as though those on the other political team are thugs and crooks and just terrible people, then 80% of the time that's the reaction that we will get from them. And on the other hand, if we were to treat the opposing party as fellow citizens who happen not to think the way we do, we will find that our respect is reciprocated about 80% of the time. I remember when John McCain was running for president against Barack Obama. At a town hall meeting, one of McCain's supporters got up and started to describe Obama as a Muslim non-citizen who would destroy our country. And McCain stopped her, and he said, Barack Obama is a good, decent family man. We disagree on some fundamental issues politically, but that's what this campaign is all about. Wow, times have certainly changed. But how we treat people tends to shape how we are treated back. And that's true in politics and in our daily life. It's important to remember that those who don't agree with us politically are fellow citizens. They're not enemies. If we turned everyone who doesn't agree with us into an enemy, each of us would make up an army of one as we all went back to the law of the jungle, and everybody would be fighting with everybody else. We aren't designed to be herd animals. We're human beings, and so we have some uniqueness in our differences of opinion. And it's important to treat those differences as a fact instead of a problem. The editor of the book of Proverbs said, "Know that wisdom is like honey for your soul. If you find it, then there will be a future, and your hope will not be cut off." Contrary to political rhetoric, this is not the end of the world. And it's especially important that we retreat from the demonizing and proceed with trust and respect as this election comes and after it's over. As the writer of Proverbs says, wisdom is like honey for the soul. Part of wisdom is to understand that there will be a future and that hope still endures. I found a quote online yesterday that speaks of living with hope, and this is from a man whose name is Howard Zinn. To be hopeful in difficult times is based on the fact that human history is not only of cruelty, but also of compassion, sacrifice, courage, and kindness. If we see only the worst, it destroys our capacity to do something. If we remember those times and places where people have behaved magnificently, this gives us the energy to act. And if we do act, in however small a way, we don't have to wait for some grand utopian future. The future is an infinite succession of present moments. And to live now as we think human beings should live, in defiance of all that is bad around us, that is in itself a marvelous victory. Isaiah says, "You shall have a song as in the night when a holy festival is kept, and gladness of heart as when one sets out to the sound of the flute to go to the mountain of the Lord. And you shall go out with joy and be led forth in peace. The mountains and the hills before you shall break forth into singing, and all the trees of the field shall clap their hands." Now, thank you for your time to listen to this. And if you find value here, I'd appreciate it if you'd pass it along. But God bless you and take care, okay? Bye-bye.